Alright, so I need to get this off my chest. It's been 3 weeks since I quit my overnight delivery job and I still can't sleep. Not because of the hours, I got used to those, but because of Route 37. Specifically the stretch between mile markers 112 and 119. You ever drive a back road so long that the lines on the asphalt start to feel like prison bars? That's 37, just a skinny, pothole-riddled highway cutting through nothing but pine forests and the occasional dead raccoon. I started noticing it my second week on the job. Around 1:30 a.m., right after passing the crooked Bates Creek sign. Yes, that Bates Creek. Locals swear it's just a coincidence. The trees shifted. Not like womp, supernatural earthquake shifted. More like you glance away to check your phone, and when you look back, the shadows along the shoulder feel denser, closer. The first few times I blamed it on fatigue. Night driving does weird things to your eyes. But then the GPS started glitching. Every night, without fail, around mile 115, the screen would fizzle to static. Not the oh no I'm lost kind, but the analog TV snow kind. Like something was jamming it. My boss said it was atmospheric interference. Sure, Jan. Atmospheric interference that only happens on a 7-mile stretch of road where the pines grow so thick that they blot out the moon. I asked my coworker Dale about it once. Dale's a grizzled dude who's been driving 37 for a decade. He just chuckled and said, "You seen the lady yet?" Turns out there's a local legend about a woman in a white dress who hitchhikes after midnight. "Don't pick her up," he warned. "She ain't stopped walking since 78. I laughed it off. Ghost stories don't scare me. But the trees kept getting closer. I started timing it. At 1:15 a.m., the pines were a normal 10 feet back from the shoulder. By 1:45, they were close enough to scrape my passenger side mirror if I veered an inch. One night, I pulled over. Stupid, I know, to check the distance. My headlights barely pierced the gloom, but I swear the soil at the base of the trunks looked disturbed, like something had dragged the whole forest forward a foot. Then there were the trucks. Not semis, just rusty, busted pickups with no plates. They'd crawl up behind me, headlights off, and match my speed for miles. Never got close enough to see the drivers, just silhouettes slouched and still. When I'd finally hit a straightaway and gun it, they'd vanish. No taillights, no engine noise, just gone. The worst night was October 23rd. Rain was coming down sideways and the woods were breathing, that low, wet groan pines make in a storm. My van's wipers were fighting for their lives when I saw her, the woman in white. Not on the side of the road though, she was in the road, soaking wet, hair plastered to her face, standing dead center in my lane. I slammed the brakes. The van fishtailed and for a heartbeat my high beams lit her up. She wasn't looking at me, she was staring into the trees, mouth open like she'd been screaming. Then the headlights died. Not the engine, just the lights. Pitch black. I fumbled for the hazards, and when they flicked on, she was gone. No footsteps, no sound, just the rain and the pines leaning over the road now, branches clawing at my windshield. I floored it. The GPS screamed static. The pickups were back, 3 of them now boxing me in. No lights, no drivers, just shadows. I don't remember how I got home. I told Dale the next day. He didn't laugh, just handed me a coffee and said, "They only stop once you quit." So I quit. But here's the thing. Last night I woke up at 1:30 a.m. to the smell of pine sap. My bedroom window was open, and outside in the empty street I could have sworn I heard tires rolling slowly over wet asphalt. Alright, so I've got to tell somebody this. I've been lurking on this sub for years, but something happened last week that finally made me create an account. I need to know if anyone else has experienced this, or if I'm just losing it. I grew up in rural Indiana, middle of nowhere, cornfields stretching for miles, the kind of place where your nearest neighbor is a half a mile down a gravel road, and the only nightlife is coyotes howling. My parents still live there, and I visit a few times a year. Last week, I went back up to help Dad fix the barn roof. Now here's the thing about those cornfields. When I was a kid, we all swore they were haunted. Not like, boo, haunted, but wrong. The kind of place where you'd see shadows moving when there was no wind, or hear whispers that sounded like someone shushing you. But the real story was always the lights. You'd see them sometimes, little pinpricks of gold or blue floating maybe waist-high in the stalks. Not fireflies, bigger, slower, like someone carrying a lantern, but not. My friends and I used to dare each other to run into the fields at night to find them, but nobody ever did. We'd chicken out or the lights would vanish, or we'd get turned around and sprint back to the road, hearts pounding. Anyway, fast forward to last Tuesday. I'm 28 now, way too old for this crap, but I'm staying in my old bedroom, right? Around 10 p.m., I'm scrolling through my phone and I see it out the window. A flicker of blue light in the corn. Just one, bobbing slowly along the edge of the field. My dad's land butts up against Old Man Harlow's plot, and Harlow's been dead for years. Nobody farmed that land since. I figured it was kids messing around, but something felt off. The light didn't move like a flashlight. It pulsed, almost breathing. And then there were two more, 3 lights now, drifting in a loose triangle. I grabbed my phone and went out to the porch. The second I stepped outside, they froze, hung there glowing. That's when I heard it. A low hum like a power line, but deeper, vibrating my teeth. The light started shifting, not moving, just warping, stretching into thin, jagged lines before snapping back to spheres. I ran back inside and locked the door. When I looked again, they were gone. I told Dad the next morning. He got real quiet and said, "You stay out of Harlow's fields here." When I pressed him, all he'd say was, "Folks used to talk about things living in the corn. Hungry things. Harlow believed them. That's why he put up the fence." Creepy, but whatever. Old farmer's tales, right? Cut to Friday night. My buddy Jake comes over for beers. We're sitting on the tailgate of his truck, staring at the stars when he goes, "You ever see those damn lights?" I almost dropped my bottle. Turns out he'd seen them too, 2 nights before me in the same spot. Blue ones. He tried to film them, but his phone glitched. Showed me the video, just static, but underneath you could hear that same hum. We're halfway through debating whether to call the cops. Aliens, tweakers, aliens, when we see it again. Not just lights this time, a shape. Tall and thin, standing at the tree line where Harlow's fence used to be. Human-ish, but stretched, like a shadow someone pulled Taffy style. It didn't move, didn't breathe, just watched us. Jake booked it to his truck. I followed. We didn't speak until we hit the highway. "You saw that, right?" he kept saying. "Right?" Here's the kicker. The next day we went back in broad daylight. No footprints, no trash, nothing. But halfway into Harlow's field, we found this circle. A patch of stalks bent flat, spiraling inward. The dirt underneath was scorched black. Dad called the sheriff. They're looking into it. Sure. But last night, I woke up at 3 a.m. to something scratching at the window. Not tapping, scratching. Long, slow drags like claws on glass. I didn't look, didn't breathe, just lay there until it stopped. This morning there were streaks in the grime outside. 3 lines, spaced like fingers, too wide to be an animal. I'm writing this from a Motel 6 2 towns over. Dad thinks I'm crazy, Jake won't answer his phone. And the worst part? When I left, I glanced back at Harlow's field. The corn was moving. There was no wind. Alright, I've been sitting here for an hour debating whether to post this, but honestly, I don't care if people think I'm crazy anymore. Something happened last night and I can't stop replaying it in my head. Let me start by saying I live in the middle of nowhere. Like nowhere. I commute home from work is a 45-minute drive down a back road called Hollow Creek Pass. It's all woods and hills, 0 streetlights, and cell service dies about 5 minutes in. Normally it's fine, just me, my Civics, high beams, and a podcast to keep me company, but last night was different. It had been foggy all day, not the cute misty kind. This was thick, soupy stuff that makes your headlights feel useless. I was probably 20 minutes into the drive when I first saw it. A flicker of the light in the fog, like my beams were hitting something reflective. A sign? A deer's eyes? I slowed down, squinting, but I couldn't see it again. I shook it off. Fog plays tricks, right? 5 minutes later, it happened again. This time, the reflection was brighter, sharper, almost like glass or metal. It was low to the ground, probably waist height. My stomach did this weird flip, but I kept driving. My hands tightened on the wheel. Just a mailbox or a puddle, chill out. But then it started happening every couple hundred feet. Same spot, dead center in the road, glowing back at me like a cat's eye. Each time I'd slow, and each time there'd be nothing there. No debris, no animal, no anything. Just the fog swallowing everything past 10 feet. By the 8th or 9th time, I was sweating. My podcast host voice suddenly felt too loud, so I turned it off. The silence was worse. That's when I noticed the temperature. My Civics heater had been blasting, but now the air felt cold. Not winter cold, damp cold, like opening a basement door that hasn't been touched in years. Then the reflections changed. They weren't just in the center of the road anymore. They started appearing off to the sides too. Little pinpricks of light in the ditches, the trees. Always the same height, always disappearing when I got close. My brain kept screaming animal eyes, but animals don't move in a perfect line down a road, and they don't stay with you. I was gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles ached. The fog got thicker. I could barely see the hood of my car. That's when I saw it. The thing in the road wasn't human, not even close. It stood on all fours, but its limbs were wrong. Too long, jointed backwards like a dog's, but with elbows that jutted up like broken tree branches. Its head was low, almost brushing the asphalt, and when my headlights hit it, the light didn't reflect, it absorbed, like the fog itself had knotted into something solid and hungry. For a heartbeat, it didn't move, just tilted its head, slowly, the way a person would. And then I saw the eyes. They weren't eyes. They were holes, hollows, but deep inside them, way back in the dark, there was a flicker, like a dying lighter sparking. My stomach dropped. I'd seen that flicker before, the same glint that had been taunting me down the road. The thing took a step towards the car. Its body didn't move right. It slid like its joints were liquid. No sound, no crunch of gravel, just the creak of my car's brakes as I stomped them. I couldn't look away. The flicker in its hollow eyes pulsed, and suddenly the cold in the car wasn't just damp, it was sharp. Needles in my lungs. My breath fogged the windshield, and for a second I lost sight of it. When the glass cleared, it was closer. Its head was level with my bumper now, those broken limbs splayed out like a spider's. The flicker in its eyes dimmed, and I swear the fog around it darkened, like it was pulling the light out of the air. I threw the car into reverse, tires screeched. The thing didn't chase, it just watched. Head cocked again, that awful tilt. And then it opened its mouth. No teeth, no tongue, just a black pit, and a sound that wasn't a sound. Some low, wrong vibration, like a cell phone ringtone played through a meat grinder. My ears popped, the dashboard lights fizzed. I didn't wait. I spun the wheel, slammed the gas, and fishtailed back until the thing vanished into the fog. Then I wrenched the car around and floored it. But the reflections came back, dozens of them now swarming in the fog on all sides. Same flicker, same hollow eyes, all keeping pace with the car. I didn't stop, didn't breathe, not until I hit the main road, where the fog finally thinned and a single streetlight buzzed overhead. The reflections didn't follow. When I got home, I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with every light on, Googling animal sightings and fog hallucinations like a maniac. Nothing fit. But here's what keeps me up. When I finally checked my car this morning, there were scratches, long, thin grooves dug into the passenger door, right under the handle, and the smell like burnt hair and wet soil. I'm not driving that road tonight. Screw work, screw everything. But as I write this, the fog's already creeping past my windows, and I keep seeing flickers in the corner of the rooms. Small ones, low to the ground. They'd crawl up behind me, headlights off, and watch my My commute home from work is a 45-minute drive down a back road called Hollow Creek Pass.